I think you touched on a lot of good topics there. I think you're completely right in this is definitely a step in the right direction. Because as you mentioned, this isn't exactly evolutionarily a issue that humans have learned to be able to deal with. Evolutionarily, we look at issues that are ahead of us, the challenges, the threats that are in our face. And what I've realized lately is just observing what's happened in the last 2 years is there has been a lack of commitment to change,
Yes.
which has been quite disconcerting, to be honest. Because when humans want to make an impact, before the last couple of years, I was in the air as to their ability to be able to do that within my lifetime, until COVID, where no longer was the economy of the world as important. It was no longer about how much is for example, vaccine. How much is the vaccine going to cost? No, that wasn't what was being talked about. What was talked about is how we're going to get the vaccine.
Exactly.
So it was the solution. So when we were motivated enough to find the solution, we did it.
Yeah,
but when it comes to climate, they just fall apart. So it goes to show that we are really in the boiling frog analogy, that, as you said, if we had that shock of going to another planet, going from what we have now to a place that was 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees more, of course, we'd be like, oh, we need to change
Fix
this.
it. Right.
But because we're so used to this environment and those changes are so subtle and they're not as consistent, we lose that connection of being able to think, okay, this change is happening a couple of degrees, like 1.5 degrees on average doesn't sound much on the world average, but looking at 1.5 average across the world,
7% in the Arctic, right? Or whatever.
Exactly right. So I think a lot of people don't quite understand that, the fact that it is such a radical change. And that's why so many people say, until all the waters are poisoned, until all the trees are gone, we're not going to know that we can't eat money. But the other thing that I've realized is connection to disasters. So there have been a number of psychological studies that have been come out in the last 5-10 years that say the people that do believe in climate change and are actively looking at improving the environment are mostly those that have been impacted or a loved one has been directly impacted by climate change. So after Hurricane Katrina in America, in that area alone, there was a massive increase in the amount of people that were like, oh shit, climate change could be real. And this was 2004, 2005. So unfortunately, it feels like one of those things that we actually all observed during vaccine. During that first month or year, what do? We're all huddled around the TV listening to, this is how many people died, evoking that emotional response, forcing us to like, oh no, this is happening right now. This is happening to my friends, my family, all over, because we're such a multicultural society. Everyone was touched in a certain way to motivate them to push, and that put pressure on the governments, that put pressure on industry to find a solution. But climate change doesn't work that way. We don't see that every day.
What I take from what you're saying in response to what I just shared is it does elicit something, right?
Yes.
So that's what we're playing with. We're experimenting.
That's
with
right.
That kind of questions. How can we elicit that kind of thing that we saw with
exactly
COVID around
elicit a response to make that action change? Yeah, and that's exactly what we need. Because otherwise, people won't have that connection to want to change.